Hey, everybody, before we get started with our conversation today with John Beauprez, I just want to remind you that everybody that signs up for the main event, the 2021 main event for World College Poker on our website, gets a free $100 hotel voucher courtesy of PLOQuickPro.com. Now, why in the world would you not want to sign up for this tournament and get that free $100 hotel voucher? So go right now to our website and get that voucher and sign up, because you could win a lot more, including lots of big prizes, over $50,000 in prizes. If you're a college student currently enrolled, go to our website, sign up for that tournament. Starts on July 24th. Alec back here for World College Poker, and today I am glad to be joined by Bracelet winner, educator, soon-to-be father of a second child, right?
That's right.
That's right. Crazy things going on, but John Beauprez gave us a little bit of his time to sit down from PLOQuickPro.com. John, how are you doing today?
I'm excellent. Like you said, I'm actually like T-minus 48 hours from having a second child. So
oh my gosh,
I'm excited. Another little baby girl. So in poker terms, we're on the bubble, but I don't know if we're really hand for hand yet.
Right.
But, the floor manager's like walking around and, making sure that things are progressing quickly. So yeah, man, just trying to, rest up for the next couple of months where I'm almost certainly not going to be getting much sleep.
Right, exactly, for a big grind. I mean, we'll talk even more about that a little later on, but I want to go back to the very beginning, as we have with all of our guests, about how you got started in poker. And of course, like many of our guests, it ended up being in a college setting, college dorm room. Take us back, University of Colorado. You're playing with your friends and classmates. Tell us about your start in the game.
Yeah, honestly, I never had aspirations of playing professionally. I was just playing a ton of poker purely because I loved it. In the beginning, I'd be lying if I wasn't saying that I was motivated by money. It was nice. In poker, money's kind of how you keep score. And I was real competitive growing up. I was a very serious baseball player. I had aspirations of going to play college baseball. That didn't really pan out for me. So poker in college was my competitive outlet. It kind of replaced that. So in the beginning, I still remember very vividly, I had a huge attachment to the money, and I didn't have much money when I was in college. And I remember the worst that I ever felt, I think maybe ever in poker, was when I think one night I lost like $250 playing like a $25 buy-in, and I was just completely devastated. But, I really wasn't in the beginning. I couldn't stop reading poker books. I couldn't stop playing poker. I really wanted to beat all my friends. And, at CU Boulder, they have a lot of out-of-state students. And I remember I was living in the dorms, and most of the out-of-state kids had a lot of money. And I looked at it as an opportunity to earn some extra beer money.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, we played tournaments, but then everything's kind of evolved into cash games. Started off playing No Limit. And just kind of graduated from there. I started out playing in the dorms, and then I found I think it was like 1, 2, or 2, 5 games in the Denver area, and started playing the private games. And that was pretty much it, man. Just got started in the dorms like most other people in college.
Absolutely. But there had to be a moment where you're like, okay, you really weren't tracking it, but you were competitive, you were doing well, you were making some of that extra beer money, like you said. But was there a moment where you're like, oh, hold on, like maybe this is for real. Maybe I could do this as a job.
Right. Well, as I mentioned, I kind of was making easy money playing 1-2 No Limit. I do remember this pretty vividly. And then there was a guy in my game he was another kid that I went to CU with, and he was incredible. And he clearly was on another level and was taking it. He was basically the only person in the game that was taking it more serious than me. And I used to host these little $30 like rebuy / add-on tournaments at my apartment. And I invited him to come play. And when he showed up, he asked me if I would take a full tilt transfer. So this was actually back in like 2005 or 2006. He was like, hey, can I just transfer you money on full tilt? And I'm like, sure. So he logs in on my computer. I look over his shoulder, and the guy's got 20 grand in his full tilt account. And to me, I was blown away, because I think that the most I ever had on account was like a few $1,000s. And actually, this person was Chance Corneth, who, of course, now very well-known player. And I just kind of made it. I kind of made it my goal that, hey, I need to befriend this guy. I need to really understand why he's been so successful playing poker. And after watching him and really understanding his approach to the game, it became clear that there was a huge edge to be had. And there was also just a lot of money to be made playing online poker at the time. I mean, the action was crazy. I remember, it was pretty easy to just fire up 10 tables of, smaller mid stakes, 10 or even 20 tables of smaller mid stakes cash games. So that was really when I started to second guess like a traditional career path. And when I really started to get more into training videos and playing more often and really learning from Chance, I basically made it my mission to any time that he was playing, go over there, sit next to him, watch him play all the tables, ask as many questions as I could. Even for a period of time, he was staking me. And it ended up being a really fruitful relationship for both of us because I was really dedicated to studying. I kind of had my ear to the ground in terms of knowing what poker softwares were out there, what were like the new cutting edge training videos, what were some new sites where he could play that, there was good action. And then when he and I graduated college and he was still in college, and I was kind of, honestly stuck at the small and mid stakes for a while though. And Chance had already, by that time, he had moved up to basically playing 25-50 online. He's winning, 20 to 40 grand a night. And I'm sitting here working, at the time I still had my college job. I was making like, $17 an hour or something like that, working nights in a hospital. And I was like, what am I doing working at this hospital? Like, I've got this one of my closest friends, who's got this special gift to do basically what I really enjoy doing. Why don't I, take this a lot more seriously and see if I can play professionally? So that's what I did. I basically, just devoted everything that I could to poker for about a year. Got to the point where I was comfortable making a consistent hourly and winning over a big hand sample, and quit my job and never really looked back.
Never looked back, and I have to say it's pretty much worked out for you. I think that is a fact that anybody can look at objectively. But also, I know that your family was maybe a little concerned, of course, as most end up being by the choice. But you said to the Colorado Expression in an interview that gambling was just in your genes. And did your family come around to poker? And what do you think keeps people from recognizing that poker's more than just a gamble?
Well, I think part of the reason that people don't understand poker is they don't understand the game. There's a lot of uncertainty around it. I think that I think anyone who's played poker, even like somewhat seriously, even if it's just, with friends once a week or once a month or something like that, you're going to recognize that there is clearly a skill to winning. And the same players are winning over and over and over again. Every home game has that guy who just basically crushes everybody else. And I think that for people who haven't had that kind of experience, I think it's hard for them to relate. Their only experience with gambling or casinos is, they had like that uncle or aunt who lost a bunch of money, like in slots, or, had a gambling problem. Or when they were out in Vegas with their friends, they saw the degenerates sort of sprinkled around the casino. And it's hard for them to really delineate between poker players and degenerate gamblers. Certainly, I think that there's some sort of quote that basically, gambling, it's not gambling if you understand the risks, more or less. And that's how I've always felt. It's really funny because I think that I'm kind of a real life nit. I'm not like, I don't really like to take crazy risks, but in poker, it never really feels like a big risk for me because I understand the game. I understand the risk really well. I'm sure that angel investors and private equity people, they feel the same. They really understand the business world. They understand the businesses that they're investing in. And so it doesn't feel crazy to them to be taking some calculated risks. So I think that for people, the reason why it has maybe some negative connotations has to do with their lack of understanding of it. And I think that as professional poker players and anyone who is a fan of poker, I think that's what's frustrating when relating to the general public. And when you see, that maybe the lottery is legal, but poker's not, or maybe that daily fantasy sports or these other things are legal and poker's not. I think that's tough to accept because anyone who understands the game realizes that there's a real tangible, undeniable skill edge.
Yeah, I mean, it's shocking in 2021 that we're liking, poker is it's almost a realm with chess about the amount of statistics, math, studying, et cetera you can do. But yet, lottery and lotto tickets is just a widely accepted thing in America. But, poker still feels like it's got the backroom sort of bad. You're bad for doing that.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So, Yeah, and back to the other side of that question, were my parents supportive and stuff like that? My parents were great. I think that they were concerned, which they should be.
Yeah.
I still tell people, I think, for 95% or more of people who play poker seriously, like playing full time is probably not a good idea. It's
Yeah.
really difficult to make it. The games are consistently getting harder. There's more, partially because of guys like me who are putting out good content and good educational resources to help the masses. It makes things more difficult. But that certainly doesn't mean that you can't succeed if you take it seriously enough. I mean, there's new pros popping up all the time. And there's constantly going to be new influxes of pros coming into the game, like people who are watching this who are in college. It certainly, if you have aspirations and you want it bad enough, you will absolutely find ways to succeed. And I do think that although poker is getting tougher, I think that certain games and there will always be ways to make fairly easy money playing poker. I think that live poker, for example, will always be easy or relatively easy, I should say. I think there's just always going to be recreational players, and at those limits, like if you want to play professionally bad enough, and you're content with beating like $2 $5 stakes, live, you'll always be able to do that if you study hard enough. It's not too tough. But yeah, moving up to the limits where you're a world-class pro playing 25-50, okay, well, that's significantly harder.
Right. It's a lot harder nowadays, even just in the, sometimes in the ACR streets, I find sometimes I'm like, man, this feels harder than being in the casino for the first time, where it was just the plays were so simple, the people were easy, they were recreational. Yeah. It's now, like you said, darn, John, why are you putting out good content? So if you're trying to make money here. But no, I mean, I think it's good too, because I think having educational content does essentially at least attempts to get rid of the stigma, because there is education, there are things to learn. You can become not just a better thinker and decision maker, but better person in general from the game, thanks to like content that you're making at PLO Quick Pro.
Yeah, no question. I think that poker's been a good influence on my life, and it's really taught me how to think through decisions objectively. And I'm about to have 2 kids now, and I'm definitely going to teach them how to play poker. And just in general, card games I think it's a healthy way to exercise your brain. But like anything else, if you do it too much or you do it the wrong way, it can become toxic.
Absolutely. And it's also a good way to socialize too. And of course, I know you met Chance just through socializing and meeting somebody that you admired. How else have you found community in poker?
Well, there's a lot of online communities now. One thing that's interesting is when, my specialty, I guess, is Problem in Omaha, although I won my bracelet and Hold'em. Omaha communities were pretty niche and pretty tight knit back in the day. But nowadays, there's tons of training sites. There's a ton of ways to really improve your game with online communities. And I think that there definitely is some camaraderie with other professional players and anybody who takes poker seriously, even though it's kind of a lonely game in the sense that it's you against other players. I do think that, there's most people in poker really genuinely want to help each other out and help each other get better. And because, at the end of the day, that also challenges, it's a way to challenge yourself too. It is an interesting profession and an interesting industry in the sense that you're sort of, you're trying to win money from your friends in a lot of cases, right. Especially in these tournaments. A lot of the people who are professional tournament players, they go to all these tournament stops, but at the end of the day, it's like everybody's trying to beat each other.
Yeah, especially the high roller. I mean, where you got 25,000, it's like the people that are coming. Steve O'Dwyer's and Eric Seidel's of the world are going to be at these tournaments every time, which is interesting. It's an interesting dichotomy of that community.
Yeah, you develop a lot of frenemies.
Yeah, for sure. Let's go back. Of course, like you mentioned, you won your bracelet, I believe in 2013.
That's right.
No Limit Hold'em, $1,500 event. Talk to us about maybe how do you think that college journey of going through the game prepared you for that moment, that tournament in 2013?
Well, I think that, I had a lot of challenges in poker up to that point, and I think that there was a lot of inflection points from the sense of I had to make a decision over and over again if I really wanted to do this professionally or if I really wanted to take this seriously to the level where I was capable of winning like a World Series of Poker bracelet. The previous year, I remember I actually had a deep run in the main event in 2012. I got 58th. And the truth was that I I felt really unprepared. Like it came day 6 of the main event, and I just felt like I was outmatched. And I also felt like it revealed a lot of mental game leaks that I had from the perspective of not believing in myself enough and not being well rested and just not really, I just really I felt like a fish out of water when I was deep in the main event. But that, forced me to put a lot of effort into my mental game, into my preparation and stuff like that. So the following World Series, I didn't feel like a fish out of water. I felt like I actually had a big advantage over the other players when we went deep. And I do think that that's something that most players definitely underestimate in tournaments today is they underestimate how deep it is or how tough it is deep in the tournaments. Mm-hmm. I think that, a lot of times I saw a tweet from, I can't remember who it was, but basically they were saying, they talk a lot about, players charging big markups for these tournaments and stuff like that. Like, for example, in Vegas right now, there's the $10 million tournament going on at the Wynn, and you see a lot of people charging some pretty ridiculous markups. And one justification for those markups is about, the number of recreational players and how soft it is. And that may be true on day 1, but by the time you get to like day 4, there's very few recreational players nowadays. It's still, in many cases, equally as tough down the stretch. So I think that's been one thing that really stuck out of me is if I didn't have that failure in 2012. Granted, it was awesome going deep in the main event, and most people would consider that a pretty big success. But I remember like I busted out of the main event and I cried. I literally cried.
Oh wow, yeah.
Because I was so like, I've been thinking about going deep in the main event, basically since I started playing poker, and I feel like I was so close, and I don't think I'm ever going to be able to go deep again. But, I certainly wouldn't have been able to win my bracelet in 2013 if I didn't have that experience and those challenges.
Right, absolutely. And even like, understanding how hard it is to not only just make good decisions along the way in such a huge tournament, but then have the cards go the right way. Just to get to 58th, before you get into poker, 58th is like, oh, you got 58th? Like, who cares? And now you're like 58th out of like 7,000. It's like, wow, that was a great run. Like, wow, unbelievable, which is interesting.
I ran great. There's no doubt about that. Right. So, and maybe hopefully have another deep run someday in the main event. But I think that another inflection point that was interesting for me was Black Friday. Mm-hmm. That was certainly a point where I didn't have that many options once online kind of went away for American players. It went away for some players. There were still ways to get online. You could VPN into some sketchy Euro sites, or, you could try to play on. There were still a couple of sites that were taking Americans, but it certainly was a significant barrier to entry. And I had to really think of like, okay, do I really still want to play professionally? Because it's significantly harder. And I basically just lost my bankroll because my money was stuck on Full Tilt and PokerStars. And so it was another kind of like, I don't, I'm going to do whatever the fuck it takes at this point, basically. Like I had moved to Vegas. I was like, I'll just play live and I'll continue to get to improve that way. Like I'll just doesn't matter. Somebody in the world is playing professionally, and I'm going to do, everything that they're doing and more, because I want this really badly.
Absolutely. Alec Rome here with John Beauprez of PLOQuickPro.com. And even too, when you got interviewed for that bracelet win, you said that that the poker experience is like the quintessential example of entrepreneurship. You get what you put into it. Have your views shifted at all on poker since that moment, or do you feel like that rings still pretty accurate to this day?
No, I think I certainly think it's accurate. Absolutely.
Absolutely. I was going to say, I feel like it is in a way of just, the part of learning poker is being able, it's always handle the swings. And it's a thing that, once you get into poker, you hear all the time, handle the swings. But it really is. And then it all of a sudden translates over to your life of being able to handle the bad things that happen to you. You have a fire, or, you car crash or something like that. And all of a sudden you handle things a lot better because of the grit that you have to have in order to succeed in poker, and how much you have to put into it, as I'm sure you can attest of that mentality and that mental focus required to go through all of it is part of the example, I'm sure, of why you said that.
Yeah, I think that I can remember specifically there's a moment that was sort of there was a period of time that was sort of trial by fire.
Mhm.
It actually was, just following my tournament win in 2013. I started focusing, there was a period of time, there was basically a couple of years where I was just playing a ton of tournaments. Like I remember when I was living in Vegas, I basically would grind like the Venetian Deep Stack tournaments, and I would play like a ton of live tournaments. I was playing a lot of like live tournaments, and that was just kind of my thing for a period of time. I think I was kind of chasing that big live win. But then after I had the Bracelet win, I got back into cash games, and I had really kind of struggled to break through to playing higher stakes cash games consistently. And I think I had a bit of a mental block in terms of like the money aspect. Like I just would get, I would suddenly, I'd be in a big pot. I'd be playing like a $10,000 pot or something. And I'd be kind of like, oh my God, like there's a $10,000 pot. Like, and my mind would sort of shut down, and I would get emotionally charged and feel like I couldn't think straight. And then it just so happened that here in Denver, there were some good private games that started to run, and they were quite large, actually. In fact, like the biggest stakes that I had played previously, I think was like maybe 1025 or 2550. But then suddenly there was this really incredible game that was 5100. And it just was an opportunity that I couldn't really pass up. And right. I kind of went from, I think that the biggest pot that I had played previous to this game was like $11,000 or $12,000 to suddenly I'm playing like $40,000 or $50,000 hands in a night. And so, but I realized like after the first couple, like ripping the Band-Aid off, I was like, I would lose, I'd get like a bad beat and lose like a $40,000 pot. And I sort of was like, oh, wait, I didn't die. I didn't like freak out. Yeah. I'm not like super tilted. Like I can handle this. I don't, in fact, like you don't really have a choice but to handle it. It's like, okay, well, you're not going to quit. So right. You just have your body, your mind figures out a way to handle it. That's kind of also, I feel that there's some parallels with tournaments because, the interesting aspect of tournaments is you can't quit them, right?
Yeah.
If you're deep in the tournament, it's like you can't just like suddenly do like an ICM calculation and they give you your money and leave. Like you have to either bust out or win the tournament. And so I think that it just kind of forces you to adjust. You really have to focus, really have to continue to analyze your opponents, no matter how deep you are in the tournament, no matter how, no matter what happens, you just have to kind of figure it out. So I think that you naturally, once you see yourself perform well in those, when everything's on the line, you naturally develop this confidence, and you don't have to second guess anymore. Like, oh man, can I do this? Or, oh man, am I going to be really tilted if I lose this pot? Or am I going to have this sort of regret or anything else? No, like you just kind of either, you step up to the plate and you do it.
Try to smack a home run, get the win, get the bracelet. And even too, obviously we're speaking to a lot of college players out there that might be introducing themselves to the game for the first time. And of course, we're lucky enough to be partnered with PokerStars to do our main event here starting on July 24th. You can register for it on our website. But it is I think it's quintessential example of a no-lose situation, because those same stressors where you're thinking about, oh man, I'm losing $40,000, I bought a $10,000 buy-in, I have to stay alive in this tournament, is escaped, and it's all just stuff for free. It's a big tournament, it's a worldwide tournament, but it's also still bringing that pressure without the risk in a way. What sort of what do you think is going to be good about this tournament and what it might do for the world of poker going forward?
Yeah, I think that it's important to really channel the excitement of college poker players. I mean, I just like, in fact, like I love talking to college poker players because they have that same kind of enthusiasm, right? And back then, in a way, now I would say, poker's more transactional for people who have been playing professionally for a while. And I really do kind of miss, that excitement. I used to love playing free roll tournaments when I was in college. I would stay up all night playing free roll tournaments for the shot at, they used to have like free rolls into satellites, into these huge live events and stuff like that. And yeah, it's really important to really channel that enthusiasm and that excitement for being the opportunity to win some money for nothing.
Right, so. Exactly. And our first place ends up winning a whole EPT package. They're going to play runner-up in the WPT Heads Up Championship, Patrick Antonius. I mean, those are sort of things that I think a lot of people would have dreamed of having the opportunity to have right away without any sort of risk, without any sort of bankroll, which is very exciting, I'm sure. And do you think that this chain of the like college players becoming the next superstars are we going to keep seeing that? Because it seems like almost, I'd say, a majority of the people I've interviewed so far, a few exceptions, of course, they started in college, made the transition, and all of a sudden, boom, then they started in the game. Do you think that's going to be a continued thing for the next 10, 20, 30 years?
Yeah, why not? I think that, with college players, they have the time to devote to being a top player. I think that the toughest thing in the beginning certainly is the time, because poker is an incredibly complex game. Like every situation is different opponents, different stack sizes, everything. So really having the time to not only learn the game, but then to grind is a huge advantage that college players have, as opposed to people who are, my age. I'm 36, and other people, just because you have more real life obligations that prevent you from putting in all of that time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would love to watch every video and read every book that comes out, and also be able to balance that with a consistent grind schedule, but it's not feasible. So for college players, that's a huge advantage that people that are older don't have. So, and I think that the best learning tool that players have is being able to grind. I always tell people, you learn more from playing and grinding than you will from anything else. You can read any poker book, you can watch any video, but at the end of the day, the goal is to become a good poker player, not a good poker learner.
Yeah.
So and there's a lot of intangible skills that just require some time. Put it at the table. So that you really can't. There's really no comparison to just having the time to grind.
Absolutely, and I'm sure too that maybe your part of your transition once you started to get more obligations was also making PLO Quick Pro. As we've seen a couple of our different people we've had on the show talk about a sort of way to transition to still be able to support themselves. So take us through your journey with PLOQuickPro.com, and even maybe just PLO in general, because there was a transition. You got your Bracelet, No Limit Hold'em, but now all of a sudden, right, PLO is the new game in town. It seems like that's where everybody's saying the money is to be had now.
Right. Well, my friend Chance,
right,
he was like devoting most of his time to he's really the one that got me into PLO. And this was back in, I guess, 2006, 2007. And he was basically just saying, look, like everyone's so bad at Omaha, and it's just basically where the money's going to be made in the coming years. And he was right. And I still feel that if I had to choose, I think it's best to be like a PLO cash game pro and a no limit tournament pro, because that's where most of the recreational players are. It's where the games are softest. PLO is a tournament game. Generally speaking, the prize pools aren't very big. You can have some good PLO tournaments at the World Series and stuff like that. But no limit tournaments, I think, are just still going to continue to be king for a long time. But yeah, PLO cash games I got into for all the obvious reasons. I thought that they were the best opportunity to make money. It seemed like there weren't very many good educational resources out there for people to learn how to play PLO the right way. So if you had access to an expert like I did, and you were willing to put in the time, you could develop a big edge, because there just weren't very many good players out there. So that was really why I got into it. It's nice to see that the game has blossomed quite a bit. But clearly, I don't think that Omaha is a great tournament. It's not a game that was built for tournaments, frankly. I think that no limit tournaments are still going to be king for a long time.
Right, and of course PLO Quick Pro has been so nice to do so many different trip vouchers. I mean, our fall brawl, we were giving away trips, through your kindness to lots of different destinations across the U.S. and South America. And I know that was such an exciting thing for everybody. Not only are you doing that, but you're giving away, wisdom and all of these things in hopes of other players succeeding. Do you get as much, or what's the feeling when you see one of your students succeed versus yourself? Where normally it was before it's about me, then you start seeing students succeed. What is that feeling like?
Yeah, well, it's a natural way for me to learn as well. I
Hmm.
have had some like such a wide, I've had such a diverse um, collection of students over the years. And at this point, I've had hundreds of students, and it's awesome getting feedback, having people test some of the stuff that I've written about, and being able to do coaching sessions, and helps keep me fresh. Selfishly, it helps
Hmm.
keep me fresh. They ask me tough questions, show me new hands that I've never seen before. Um, and so I think that it's awesome. I love seeing students succeed. It's great.
Absolutely. And it's like I guess it sort of changes your motivation too of like now it's not just for me. It's like I want to see a group succeed. Like you said, that collaborative environment that you probably felt in college where there was that excitement as a group versus being a lonely individual trying to make it out in the 2-5 streets, It feels a lot different when you have that community, I'm sure, and that you've developed that with your students.
Totally. And, one student in particular, he's done extremely well on GG as of late. And it's funny because when we started working together, I remember him saying, he was basically playing like 10 cent, 25 cent online. And we were kind of going through his poker goals and whatnot. And he was like, oh man, like I would just give anything to be like a winning Zoom 200 regular someday. And I was like, dude, you need to set your sights like way higher. Like
Yeah.
you're going to be able to do that. Trust me. It kind of what I said earlier. Like if you work hard enough, you will for sure be able to do that. And now actually he's like open sitting 2550 and even 5100 on GG and stuff like that. And I'm like, but it's sweet because he texts me, big hands that he's playing and stuff like that. And it's motivating for me because I'm like, damn, like this guy's like playing bigger than I am. He's like winning more money than I am. Like I need to step my game up. Like, and so it's nice to be competitive and have that sort of atmosphere where we can push each other.
That's fun. That's super fun. I was going to say that motivation. It's interesting where that comes from. It seems like the competitive edge. Even it was both Jonathan Little and Matt Berkey. Again, it's so interesting. It's like there's a formula. If you've watched these, it is they're competitive in something, lost that. Now we're playing poker, and that competitive edge just comes right back in. The competition drives it now to this day, 36 years old, and you're seeing somebody else that is succeeding too, and it makes you competitive, makes you motivated to do better. And it feels like it doesn't drop out for those that are the best in the game. That competitive fire sticks around. It seems like from age, 16, 18 to now. It's super interesting. I would say a parallel that I've noticed between all of our different interviews, and that's
Mm-hmm.
something that people can pick up on is not losing the fire. The fire is so important to stick around and to stay competitive and to actually win in the game. If you don't like it, if you can't show up, in the morning at a 9 a.m. buy-in, how are you gonna succeed? How are you gonna get motivated?
Yeah, there's too many. Poker's it's a frustrating game. So
Yeah.
I just feel like if you're not competitive and you don't have um, some sort of intrinsic desire to win, or whether you're competing against yourself or you're competing against others, I just think it's too easy to quit. It's too easy to
Mhm.
get discouraged and just quit because eventually you're going to have a bad run. It costs money to play if you're not a winning player. So, eventually you're just going to quit. So I think that, yeah, I would agree 100% that the people who are at the top, highly competitive, and are just, yeah, they definitely got that competitor mindset.
As we wrap up things here on World College Poker, I know we talked earlier about to add another member to the Beauprez family. You
Yep.
already have a daughter, and how has being a father changed your life, both from a simple perspective and maybe from a poker perspective as well?
It's humbling. It's nice. I have to say, when I was single and stuff like that, it was a little depressing sometimes when, you would go through a tough run in poker and it just felt like, what am I doing? I go home and I have nothing else to do but continue playing poker. And it can be a little suffocating. But now, it's nice. Like, my daughter, Sophie, she's happy with very little, and it's fun to come home and be reminded of what's important. And so it helps put things in perspective, helps keep you humble, and also definitely gives you motivation to continue to improve, continue to make money doing things. So from that perspective, it's definitely a good motivator. I think that when you're playing kind of just for extra beer money or just for the hell of it, sometimes you don't have as much of a motivation to succeed. For me, I don't really have a choice to fail at this point. Like I'm going to do whatever I need to do to continue to improve my game, increase my win rate, and remain competitive. So I think that I feel like that's been the biggest benefits for me for being a dad.
Absolutely, that's awesome. And finally, I guess to ask, what do you hope your legacy is in poker, or do you have one, or do you just simply focus on the day to day of trying to enjoy each day and like you said, make money, stay winning, stay competitive?
I think I haven't thought much about having a legacy. At some point, maybe I just kind of quit playing poker and do something else. I've
Hmm.
thought of, I really am passionate about trying to broaden the game's reach. I think that it would be cool to get to the point where I could focus on making poker legal in other states somehow help streamline that process. I think that that's something that I'm passionate about. I do think that poker, in particular online poker, should be available to and I think that as you see sports betting becoming illegal in many more states, I do think poker is a natural next step. And I think what's also a cool angle is live poker rooms. I've been following closely, what's going on in Texas with these poker rooms that are sort of quasi legal, and of course, like California's got card rooms and stuff like that. I would like to see that be um, something more common in the United States. I've considered ways that we could do that even here in Colorado. And I just know that poker is a very American thing, and I would like to see it be more widespread and more accepted from on the legal side of things. And anything that I could do to help that would be, I think, really rewarding.
Absolutely. Well, it's been great talking to you. And before I let you go, tell us if we're looking for coaching, PLO game, up my PLO game. Where am I going? How do I get in contact with you on PLO Quick Pro?
Sure. Yeah. Visit www.ploquickpro.com, or you can just feel free to email me, John at ploquickpro, all one word.com.
Perfect. That's where you go if you want to get better PLO. You go to our website if you want to register for that main event. You've heard all the stories from John about the moments, the tournaments, the risks, but this is no risk, baby. It's all gravy. Go to our website to register for that.
That's
John
right.
Beauprez, thank you so much for joining us here on World College Poker.
Thanks, Alec. Good luck in the tournament, guys.
Thank you. And for World College Poker, Alec signing off for now.